God sees every tear you've cried, and none of your pain has gone unnoticed. You may have walked through moments where the weight of your hurt felt unbearable, where you asked yourself if anyone truly understood the depth of what you were going through. There were nights you laid awake replaying the words someone spoke, or the actions they took, that pierced your heart so deeply you wondered if you would ever recover. And in those moments, when you felt invisible to the world, God was right there, watching, listening, and holding every tear as if it were the most precious thing in creation. Nothing escapes his sight. The same God who placed the stars in the sky, who knows every grain of sand by number, knows exactly how many tears you've shed. And he doesn't just see them, he feels the pain behind each one. Your cries are not echoes fading into an empty sky. They are heard in the throne room of heaven. When the people who hurt you turned away, when they acted like what they did didn't matter, when they dismissed your feelings as if they were nothing, God leaned in closer to you. He did not look away. He did not ignore it. He was present in the moment of your deepest sorrow. Sometimes the hardest part of pain is not the event itself, but the silence that follows it. The silence when those who caused it pretend it never happened. The silence when others you trusted didn't stand up for you. That silence can be deafening, but even in that silence, God's presence is loud. He has been recording every moment, every detail, every injustice, not because he needs a reminder, but because he wants you to know that your story matters. When we are wronged, we often long for someone to validate our hurt, to say, "I see what happened to you, and it was wrong." And sometimes that validation never comes from the people who hurt us, but God has already spoken that over your life. His Spirit has whispered into your heart, "I saw it, and I know it was not right." He is not blind to betrayal. He is not deaf to your cries. He is not absent from your struggle. You see, God's justice is not rushed, but it is certain. When he says nothing has gone unnoticed, he means every unkind word, every selfish act, every betrayal, every moment you were pushed aside. It has all been seen. The same hands that shape the world are the hands holding your heart together, making sure that the pain you've endured does not define your future. The truth is, pain can make us feel isolated. You might feel like no one could possibly understand the depth of what you've endured. But God not only understands it, he carries it with you. When you had no one else to lean on, he became the shoulder you could cry on. When you had no one to speak life into you, he became the voice that whispered strength into your spirit. And I know there are times you've thought, if he sees me, then why hasn't he done something yet? But his delay is not neglect, it's preparation. He is preparing a way for your healing, for your restoration, and yes, for his justice to be carried out. And when he moves, it will be in such a way that no one can question that it was his hand at work. So don't believe the lie that your pain has been ignored or that your tears have been wasted. Every single one has been collected, and one day he will turn them into something beautiful. One day you will look back on the nights you thought would break you, and you will realize they were building you. You will see that God was there all along, not just as a witness to your suffering, but as a protector of your soul. God sees every tear you've cried, and one day he will show you why you never cried them in vain. Those who caused you suffering will face the weight of their own actions in God's perfect timing. I know that's not always easy to believe when you're standing in the middle of your pain, watching them walk away as if nothing happened. It can feel like they've escaped without consequence, like the hurt they caused you has vanished into thin air, while you're left carrying the weight of it alone. But what you need to understand is this: God is never late, and he is never blind to the wrongs done against his children. You see, when someone wounds you, they're not just hurting you, they are sowing seeds, and every seed will grow into a harvest. The problem is, we want to see that harvest immediately. We want to see the scales balanced now. But God's justice works differently. His timing is deliberate, his process is precise, and his plan is always complete. He is not in a rush to prove himself because he knows that when the moment comes, it will be undeniable that it was his hand at work. While it may look like the ones who caused you pain are thriving, don't be fooled by appearances. Some people are smiling publicly while living in chaos privately. Some are pretending to be strong while silently battling the consequences of their own actions. You might not see their struggle, but that doesn't mean it's not there. God knows exactly what is happening behind the closed doors of their lives. And He knows exactly when to let the weight of their choices come crashing down, not to destroy them without cause, but to bring them face to face with the truth of what they've done. That's why you don't have to spend your energy trying to make them pay. You don't have to carry the burden of revenge or the exhausting desire to see them suffer. That's not your responsibility, and it never will be. Your job is to heal. Your job is to keep your heart pure. Your job is to trust that God is fully capable of handling what you can't. If you hold on to anger and bitterness, you are only keeping yourself chained to the very people who hurt you. But if you let go, if you release it into His hands, you will find freedom long before justice is visible. There's something powerful about God's timing. It humbles the proud, it lifts the lowly, and it exposes the hidden things that no one else saw. When God steps in, there will be no doubt that He has balanced the scales. Those who thought they could walk away untouched will find themselves face to face with the consequences of their own actions. And in that moment, they will realize that their choices have led them exactly where they are. But here's something you must also understand. When God allows them to feel the weight of their actions, it's not always just to punish, it's to awaken. Sometimes, the very pain they caused you becomes the pain that opens their eyes to the truth. Sometimes, what they once ignored in you becomes the very thing they are forced to experience themselves. That's the kind of justice that not only holds people accountable, but also offers them the opportunity to change. This is why you can rest in the promise that justice is not delayed. It's simply unfolding. The same God who has been healing your heart has also been working behind the scenes in ways you cannot see. He has been orchestrating every detail, setting every moment in place, so that when the time comes, the weight of their actions will not be questioned, and the truth will be undeniable. So do not be discouraged if it feels like nothing is happening. God's perfect timing is often hidden until the very moment it is revealed. One day, the balance will tip, and those who caused you pain will feel the full measure of what they've done, not because you demanded it, but because God is faithful. And when that day comes, you will not be standing there with bitterness in your heart. You will be standing there free, whole, and stronger than ever, knowing that the one who saw your pain has handled your cause. You don't have to fight for revenge. God's justice is already in motion. I know how tempting it can be to want to take matters into your own hands. When someone has hurt you, lied about you, betrayed your trust, or tried to destroy what you've built, everything in your flesh cries out for payback. You want them to feel what you felt. You want them to understand the pain they caused. You want them to see that they can't just walk away without consequences. But here's the truth. Revenge will never give you what you're really searching for. Even if you could orchestrate the perfect plan to make them pay, it wouldn't heal the wound in your heart. Only God can do that. When you try to handle justice yourself, you take on a weight you were never meant to carry. It eats away at your peace, it poisons your thoughts, and it keeps you chained to the very people and situations you want to be free from. It's like drinking a toxin, hoping the other person will feel its effects. But God says that's not your battle. He doesn't tell you to ignore the hurt or pretend it didn't happen. He tells you to place it in His hands because He knows the whole story, what happened in front of you and what happened in the shadows where you couldn't see. You see, God's justice is not delayed. Just because you can't see anything happening doesn't mean He's not working. He has already set things in motion. Every tear you've cried, every prayer you've whispered, every moment you've chosen to walk away instead of retaliate, it has all been building toward His plan. And when He moves, it will be in a way that not only addresses what was done to you, but also reveals His glory through your life. The reason He asks you to step back is because His justice is so much higher than your revenge. Your revenge might satisfy you for a moment, but his justice restores, redeems, and teaches lessons that last a lifetime. When God handles it, the truth comes out in a way that no one can deny. The ones who hurt you will be confronted by their own actions in ways you could never orchestrate, and you will be free, not because you got even, but because you trusted the one who makes all things right. Letting go of revenge doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise enough to understand that fighting in your own strength is a losing battle. It means you choose peace over poison, faith over fury. And yes, it takes courage to step aside and let God work. It takes humility to say, I don't have to win this my way, because I know he will win it his way. While you're waiting for that justice, focus on your healing. Pour your energy into becoming whole again, into growing, into moving forward. The best testimony you can have is to live in such a way that your life is no longer defined by what they did to you, but by how God brought you through it. You don't need to prove anything to them. You don't need to chase them down to make them see your worth. God already knows your worth, and in his timing, they'll see it too, whether they admit it or not. And here's something powerful. When you release revenge, you release yourself. You break the chains that keep you tied to the past. You stop reliving the moment over and over. You stop giving the offender a seat at the table of your thoughts. You step into a new season where your peace is no longer negotiable. That's what God wants for you, not just justice, but freedom. So let them talk, let them act, let them think they've won. They haven't. God's justice is already moving, and nothing can stop what he has set in place. Your job is to keep walking, keep believing, and keep your hands clean so that when his justice arrives, your heart is ready to receive the blessing that follows. And when it does, you'll realize that what he gave you was far greater than anything revenge could ever offer. The pain they poured into your life will return to them in a way only God can orchestrate. You might have felt powerless in the moment they hurt you, like their words or actions stripped you of your strength, your peace, or even your sense of self-worth. You may have replayed their cruelty in your mind 100 times, trying to make sense of why they did what they did. But no matter how hard you try, some things can't be explained by logic because they were rooted in the brokenness inside them. They chose to pour their pain, their bitterness, or their selfishness into you, thinking it would go unnoticed or unaccounted for. But nothing in God's design works that way. The universe he created operates on a principle of sowing and reaping. Every seed planted, whether it's kindness or cruelty, grows into a harvest that will eventually return to the one who planted it. When someone pours pain into your life, they're planting something in their own future. You may not see it right away, but God has already begun the process of bringing that seed to maturity. And when it comes back to them, it won't be by accident. It will be in a way so precise, so tailored to the harm they caused, that it will be clear it was not just coincidence. It was the hand of God. It's not about wishing harm on them. That's not your heart, and it's not your role. It's about trusting that God will not allow injustice to go unchecked. You don't have to plot or plan for them to feel the weight of what they did to you. God's orchestration is far more complete than anything you could arrange. He knows the exact circumstances, the exact timing, and the exact way to bring that pain back around, not to entertain your hurt, but to fulfill his promise that what is sown will be reaped. And here's what's powerful. When God allows that pain to return to them, it will not only be a consequence, but also an opportunity for them to see themselves clearly. The same way you know the sting of what they did, they will know it too. It's not just punishment, it's revelation. God has a way of using pain as a teacher. What they made you endure might be the very thing that forces them to confront their own heart and realize the damage they've caused. You may be tempted to watch for it, to wait for that moment, but your healing doesn't depend on witnessing their harvest. Sometimes God shields you from seeing it because he doesn't want you tied to the outcome. He wants you free. Your victory is not in seeing them suffer. Your victory is in knowing you're no longer under the weight of what they did. Let them face their own journey. You have your own to walk, and it's leading somewhere far greater than the place they left you. God's orchestration is perfect. He doesn't just deal with surface-level issues, he goes to the root. The way he allows the pain to return to them will be connected to the very core of their wrongdoing. It might come through relationships, through missed opportunities, through struggles they thought they'd never face. And when it does, they'll understand what it feels like to carry what they once placed on you. The most freeing thing you can do is step back and trust that process, not with bitterness in your heart, but with peace, knowing that God sees, God knows, and God acts. You may never get an apology. You may never get an admission of guilt, but you will get justice in a way that only He can deliver. It will be thorough, fair, and unshakable. So don't waste your days looking backward, wondering how they'll pay for what they did. Live your life in such a way that their actions no longer define you. Let God's timing and God's methods handle the rest, because when that pain comes back to them, it will be wrapped in His purpose, and there will be no denying where it came from. And when it happens, you'll already be too far into your own healing to be pulled back into their storm. Your role is to heal, forgive, and keep walking in faith while God handles the rest. That may sound simple when spoken out loud, but in reality, it is one of the hardest things you will ever do. When you've been deeply hurt, your first instinct isn't to heal, it's to protect yourself. When someone has betrayed you or caused you pain, forgiving them feels like letting them off the hook. And when your trust has been shattered, walking in faith feels almost impossible because you don't want to be let down again. But this is exactly why God calls you to release what's been done to you into His hands, because He knows you can't carry it and still move forward. Healing starts the moment you decide that your future is worth more than the pain of your past. It doesn't happen all at once, and it doesn't mean you'll wake up one morning and forget what happened. Healing is a process. It's choosing, day after day, not to reopen the wounds by replaying the moment over and over in your mind. It's allowing yourself to feel the pain without letting it define you. It's giving yourself permission to rebuild, not in the shadow of what they did to you, but in the light of who you are becoming. Forgiveness is the second step, and it's often misunderstood. Forgiving someone doesn't mean you excuse what they did or pretend it didn't hurt. It doesn't mean you have to trust them again, and it certainly doesn't mean you have to let them back into your life. Forgiveness is not about them. It's about you. It's about refusing to let their actions hold power over your heart any longer. When you forgive, you cut the tie that binds you to the offense. You set yourself free from the bitterness and resentment that would otherwise poison your spirit. And then comes walking in faith. This is where you choose to believe that even though you don't have all the answers, God does. You don't need to know how He will make things right. You just need to trust that He will. Walking in faith means you take each step with confidence, even if you can't see the road ahead. It's keeping your eyes forward, not backward. It's deciding that your story isn't over and that God is still writing chapters filled with restoration, peace, and joy. When you try to handle things on your own, when you cling to anger, demand answers, or plot revenge, you actually delay your own healing. Every moment you spend focused on what was done to you is a moment you could have spent building something new. But when you let go, when you hand the pain over to God, you make space for Him to do what only He can do. And here's the truth. He can do far more with your brokenness than you could ever imagine. This doesn't mean you have to feel ready. Forgiveness doesn't always start with a feeling. It starts with a decision. Healing doesn't always begin when the pain is gone. It begins when you decide to stop letting the pain control you. Walking in faith doesn't mean you aren't afraid. It means you keep moving despite the fear. It's an act of surrender, a declaration that you trust His justice, His timing, and His plan more than your own. There will be days when you'll want to look back, when you'll want to remind yourself of how unfair it all was. There will be moments when you'll want to pick up the weight you've already laid down. But in those moments, remember this: God has not forgotten you. He has not overlooked what happened. He is still working, even when you can't see it. Your only responsibility is to keep moving forward, to keep your heart soft, and to keep your trust in Him. When you heal, you reclaim your peace. When you forgive, you reclaim your freedom. And when you walk in faith, you position yourself for the restoration that only God can give. The rest, every detail, every unanswered question, every piece of the justice you long for, belongs to Him. And that's exactly where it should be. What was meant to break, you will become the very testimony that sets you free. I know there have been moments when it felt like the weight of what you were going through was going to crush you completely. The betrayal, the rejection, the loss, it all seemed too heavy to carry, too much to survive. You may have even wondered if you would ever truly recover. But here you are, still breathing, still standing, proof that what came to destroy you did not win. And that's no accident. You see, the very thing the enemy tried to use to shatter you is the thing God is going to use to shape you. The pain that felt unbearable will one day become the story you tell to encourage someone else who is walking through their own storm. That betrayal that once made you question your worth will become the moment you discovered your strength. That loss that seemed to take everything from you will be the place where you learned that you still had everything you needed in Him. When you are in the middle of your breaking, it's hard to imagine it ever serving a purpose. It just feels raw, messy, and unfair. But God doesn't waste pain. He takes the shattered pieces of your life and puts them back together in such a way that the cracks no longer show weakness. They show His power. What was meant to weaken you will instead become the evidence of your resilience. What was meant to silence you will give you a voice that cannot be ignored. And here's the beauty of it. You don't have to force this transformation. You don't have to pretend you're okay before you are. All you have to do is keep going. Healing takes time, but every step you take forward is a step away from the grip of what was meant to break you. Every day you choose peace over bitterness, faith over fear, and love over hatred. You are writing the very testimony that will one day set you free. Your testimony isn't just for you. It's for the ones who will come after you. Someone else will need to hear how you survived what should have destroyed you. They'll need to know that it's possible to walk through the fire and not be consumed. And when you share it, they won't just hear your story. They'll see your freedom. They'll see that the chains that once bound you have been broken, and it will give them hope for their own life. Sometimes we think freedom comes only when everything is made right, when the people who hurt us apologize, when the situation changes. But real freedom comes when your heart is no longer held captive by the pain of the past. Real freedom is when you can look back at what happened and no longer feel trapped in it. That's when your testimony comes alive, when you can speak about it without bitterness, when you can see the purpose that came from it, when you can thank God for bringing you through, even though it was the hardest season of your life. The truth is, if it hadn't tried to break you, you might not have discovered your true strength. If you hadn't been pushed to the edge, you might not have learned how far you could actually go. If you hadn't been brought to your knees, you might not have found the depth of your faith. The breaking wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a transformation that has made you stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than you ever imagined you could be. And one day, you'll tell your story without tears in your eyes, not because it wasn't painful, but because the pain no longer owns you. You'll speak of it with confidence, knowing that what was meant to destroy you became the very thing that built you. And in that moment, you'll realize you are truly free. No matter what they've done, every tear, every wound, and every battle you've faced has been seen by God, and His justice is already at work. Your role is to heal, forgive, and keep walking in faith, knowing that the pain meant to break you is becoming your greatest testimony. So release it all into His hands, and watch Him turn every hurt into a victory you could never have imagined.